All right, hello everybody, welcome. This is a special live video-only broadcast here on the River's Edge for World Radio Day. We are celebrating by not going on the radio and instead going live on Facebook. I am Brian Crawford. To my right, I have Mike Sorg from Sorgatron Media, who is not on the radio.
No.
Actually, you are on the radio, but you don't do radio.
I am a version of the radio, right?
You're kind of on the radio.
Absolutely.
He's syndicated on 2 radio stations.
I am online here, and another one we won't mention because it's not River's Edge.
That's right.
At the moment.
I feel like today we can mention it though because we've got all of these different networks all in one spot, so I feel like that's okay. So you can give them a plug.
Absolutely.
So, do you want to give them a plug?
Oh yeah, the
405 we'll give them a free plug today.
Radio Network out there in California.
In the spirit of World Radio Day.
Yes,
we'll give a plug.
Spreading the wrestling mayhem and spreading the awesome cast out to the West Coast. So it's really interesting. And they're mostly political, so it's really weird.
That's interesting.
You know how our titles get on Awesome Cast and on Wrestling Mayhem Show. To see those titles mixed in with like things about Donald Trump and whatever else is going on is really strange to me, and I'm surprised they still have us. But thank you very much for them, and of course River's Edge for carrying us.
And it's kind of funny too. You mentioned that everyone always says that my show's political, and my show's not political at all. I never talk politics. I talk about issues, and of course that brings up local politicians and things like that.
There, right?
But I guess for the podcasting world, I'm super political. I guess
you could.
I'm certainly not like talk radio, like political talk radio that you hear on AM radio.
This is exactly why we're crossing it over, and our newest show that we've been piloting lately is Political Mayhem.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear.
We're talking politics, but in the vein that wrestling fans can listen to it, because politics are confusing, they don't make sense, so the people that know, actually in the wrestling business, and know politics can translate it for the rest of us.
Exactly.
They're very similar.
I'm excited about that show. So I am Brian Crawford. This is the River's Edge Radio Network. I am the host of River Talk. You can hear that every Monday morning at 10 a.m. and every first and third Saturday at 10 a.m. as well. As we said, it's World Radio Day, and we have decided to clash worlds. And usually Sorg is the grandfather of media. But today you have to pass on the torch, Sorg. Sorg, you're how many years have you been going at this now?
We just had our 12th birthday for the wrestling.
12th birthday. You're a baby, because right now, to my left, we have Abby Goldstein, who is of WYEP. And how long have you been doing radio?
32 years.
32 years.
32
I'm 31 years old.
Wow. So I got my start in 1986, and you were born in 87?
I was born in 86, but
you were born,
September,
okay.
September 86.
Wow. Okay.
So,
wow.
Yeah, so welcome.
Yes, I guess I started about 3 months before you were born.
Yeah, so you've got a long history, and I noticed that you started your radio career out in Texas.
I did, in far southeast Texas. So my mother was a membership director at the public station on the campus where I went to college. And
really?
She was bit by the public radio bug very early. I think she was listening to NPR about 10 minutes after it signed on the air. And so I grew up in a house of, she grew up in New York City. She was a golden age of radio person. She grew up sitting around the radio with her family, listening to The Shadow and The Lone Ranger. And so it was just very much a part of her identity. So when public radio signed on the air, she was just a huge fan. And then an opportunity came up for her to volunteer at the public station down in Texas, in Beaumont, Texas. And so she sort of started volunteering, and then she became the membership manager. And I went to school at Lamar University, where the radio station was, and I was a theater student. So, and the radio station was in the same building as the theater. So I would go up and hang out with her and her radio buds and eat lunch with them every day. And they were just a bunch of freaks. They were really fun.
I wish I had a cool story like that. Everybody in radio has this really cool story about how they grew up listening to radio with their parents or loving radio. I didn't have that story.
You just fell into it?
So yeah, my parents, well, first off, my parents have completely different interests than I do. They're not interested in social issues or politics or even the local music scene. Now, I think they like to go out and listen to the local music, but they're not interested in any of that, and they would just listen to the local classic rock station or the local country station that's a conglomerate now, and that's all that I was exposed to as a child. But because those stations were so repetitive. And now you guys do a great job with WYEP, but you are certainly the exception in traditional radio nowadays. It's
Right.
a lot of times you're hearing the same song
Every 2
couple
hours.
hours, and it's horrible. And
Right.
that drove me away
Yeah.
from music, and I started listening to talk radio. And it's funny because it was my interest in talk radio which has allowed me to launch an all-local music station. So
Full circle.
full circle, yes. So it's interesting. But yeah, I got into radio because I started listening to talk radio when I was in college. And I started off listening to political talk radio, and then I got sick of that because it's super repetitious. And then I moved into sports radio, and then I got sick of that because it's super repetitious. And now I listen to either online radio or I do listen to public radio. And I also listen to KQV as well.
You
because
did.
because they had a great variety as well. And we're going from the oldest podcaster in Pittsburgh to the oldest radio personality in the room as far as like experience.
Yeah.
And now we're moving into someone who was in the oldest radio station in Pittsburgh, arguably. I know it's up for debate, but we can handle that right now.
Well, I'm also the youngest person in the room, for what it's worth.
There we go.
29. So, but yeah, KQV. Well, again, it depends on who you talk to, because KDKA will always say that they were the first commercial broadcast, but KQV had their experimental broadcast on the air before KDKA.
1919?
Correct. They made it 98 years before shutting down on New Year's Eve.
Wow.
So 98 years at 1410 a.m. And the license has just been purchased. So somebody over in, I forget where it is, but Broadcast Communications.
Broadcast Communications, yeah, they're out in North for Sales.
North for
I believe.
Sales, yes. So they've just bought the license, and from what I understand, they're going to keep the same daytime power, but they're reducing the nighttime power. And there's been some discussion as to what's going to go on the airwaves. So whether it'll be news or some other format, we'll find out. But 98 years on the air at their North Hills broadcasting site.
And that's an interesting connection that we have, too, because he just got laid off because his company closed down, and the company that bought it is a station that I once was on the air with. And
Oh, that's right. You were telling me about that.
KHB. I was on KHB Radio AM doing a community broadcast for Irwin, Pennsylvania years ago. So.
But don't you guys think that's the way it is? I mean, don't you think that in a smallish industry like this, we end up running into each other
for
everywhere
sure.
we
Oh,
go?
for
I mean,
sure.
Yeah.
especially if you've spent your entire life in a city and, there's just not that many people in a microcosm like this
Right.
that you do. It's a little incestuous. You do run into colleagues at certain points in your career, and then you go, "Oh, did you work with so and so?" "Yeah, I worked with so and so," and it's just, that's just the way it is.
in the newspaper industry. My goodness, you see the same people that work for every single paper, then they'll all work for the same online blogs, then they'll quit all the same online blogs and find different blogs or go back to the paper, and it's a cycle. It's crazy.
Well, that's because those are the people who know their beats backward and forward,
Yeah.
and and have that institutional knowledge and that history. So, you don't want to give up on having that level of knowledge and being able to share it with the world.
You don't want to start over someplace new either.
Right,
If you can
right.
go back to what you're comfortable with, there's no reason not
and it
to.
takes years to develop that beat and
for
develop
sure.
that knowledge. So, of course, you're going to want to
Oh, for
stay in
sure.
the field.
Well,
Right?
that's like, the music scene. I can attest to that, being involved as heavily as I have been for 3 years. It was great having Chris Lea in studio. He was an interview that I had. He runs Liveberg Studios, and it was just great because being that he wasn't in the studio to represent his band or a performance, he and I were able to just talk about local music, and it's rare in the local music scene. As you know, you guys do a lot with local music at WYEP. It's rare to find people who have that kind of knowledge on local music,
Very
which is
true.
kind of cool. Sorg, I know he's the matchmaker in the podcasting world. He does so much with, he runs, him and several other people run PodCamp Pittsburgh out of Point Park University, and he also does a lot of really great community outreach with education classes in libraries that he does, which are free of charge, to go learn about podcasting and get involved in podcasting. So you kind of see the same people over and over again and run into people as well, don't you?
Well, yeah. It's really interesting because I'm listening to this about the radio thing, and I see this in other industries like the pro wrestling stuff that I work with. And then the podcasting is interesting because we could be completely... I've literally seen podcasters in my neighborhood since we moved in Beachview and become a little more visual. They're literally a block away that I never knew were there. right? There's a guy running like a thrift shop podcast that's really good called
Wow.
Thrifty on iTunes. Go check it out.
I've heard of that. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, it's like that. We're not going to the same things. Like we're all independent, so we're not bouncing around the same, you know, radio stations, newspapers. Like we don't have a foundation like that, right? Because it's so
New.
It's new. It's also decentralized. I don't have to go to a radio station to do it. I don't have to come to River's Edge or Sorgatron Media to do it. I'm doing it in my closet, in my basement, in my garage, right?
But don't you think it does make a difference when you have a nice studio like the beautiful studio on
absolutely.
Beachview Boulevard?
Absolutely, and that's something to aspire to, and obviously you and I have to try to make this, you know, bigger and you know, more professional and build something bigger out of it. But that was the attraction of podcasting for me. Again, not really interested in talk radio, you know, but I was very interested.
Well, it's funny that you say that because his show, Awesomecast, is very radio styled, and that's one of the reasons why I like it. So one thing that I don't always like on a podcast is when it becomes a ramble, which I think can often happen in a podcast. Your show is very styled in a similar vein to radio, where you have different segments that reoccur each week. You have rotating guests that come in, and it's easy to follow. And you know, okay, you've gone through this segment. You know the awesome thing of the week is coming up. Okay, you've gotten through that. You know it's sliced. You've got your
we've been
bits.
doing this for 12 years. If you listen to the shows 11 years ago, you're probably not going to be as you know
Complimentary.
Yeah, complimentary. And this was, you know, I didn't go to a school. I wasn't at a radio station when I say this is the format or anything like that. I had to figure that out for my own.
Sure.
And along with my co-host and everything, right? And
Now, did you look to anything else to come up with that?
yes. So it's actually, I'm realizing now that the person that I looked at as the inspiration runs Tech Guy Radio on AM stations every weekend and still does to this day, Leo Laporte. So, and that's where I took a lot of my cues as he's building his podcast network and their section. You know, I see the segments, I see the advertising, and that's a lot of what we try to emulate, but in other subject matters.
Well, you know, I think this is a super interesting conversation, right? So CJ was saying he worked at a radio station that was on the air for almost 100 years, right?
Yeah.
Radio has been around for multiple generations. And so that industry has developed a set of best practices. We know what reaches an audience, and we get data immediately that tells us how we're doing with our listeners. And so it is an outwardly focused approach. We know there's tried and true best practices, methods that will develop your audience for you. And for the podcast world, which we're looking at 15 years of life for podcasters, I think the podcast world is still figuring out what are the best practices. How are you engaging with your audience? And it's consumed very differently. So I think it's very interesting to see how this is developing and shaping up.
And the attraction for me, one was, you know, it forced the accessibility and not having to worry about the FCC, things like that. You can do whatever you want, right? And of course, there will always be people will gravitate towards those professional, you know, sound like radio kind of ones. But there was also the, hey, let's just have a long conversation. Like if you're like, there was a show called The Awful Show. There was comedy.
Was it awful?
Dirty comedy. They were actually awesome, and I took a lot of cues from them, too.
Okay.
And I think they also worked a little bit in, like, local, at least college radio stations and local radio and media on the other side of Pennsylvania. And but they would do, like, a 3.5-hour show.
Oh, wow.
Right. Like,
Which was
who's going to
insane.
put Mark Maron on a traditional radio station
right.
to talk about his neuroses for 2 hours?
I mean, can't get past the commercials in the beginning of a show, and that's one thing that drives
Yeah, you
me
can.
nuts.
That's the 10-second skip
Right,
button.
right.
That's an extra button I have to click.
It's a habit for me.
And that's the button when you're listening to the River's Edge and it's sponsored. You don't want to click that button.
No, because they're too entertaining here.
Yeah, actually, my
Don't
promotions
click
are
the button.
fantastic.
That's what
Don't click the button.
That's one thing I have mastered.
you have.
Advertising.
You have.
Yeah.
By the time the ad's done, you don't know if you've been advertised to. That's
Exactly.
The trick.
That's the trick, yeah.
But the thing is, even the Leo Laporte I listened to is like, oh, here's the thing for the bed that he talks, that Casper mattress that I should get paid for this that he talks about, or Squarespace. I already have 5 sites on Squarespace.
It's boring, right? It's boring. It makes you want to change the channel. The podcast becomes dead, right?
But
It becomes a dead
yes,
listening thing, right?
But when they do things like the Audible podcast or the Audible ads where they tell me what books they're reading, it's like, okay, that's content, right?
Sure.
And that's interesting.
But the other style can kill a podcast, right?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Even a good podcast.
Right.
Yeah.
The
And
entire broadcast world is trying to figure this out
Oh,
because,
yeah.
because we're all listening and watching and consuming on demand now. So we can all just skip through the things that the advertisers are putting out there to try to, reach that audience. So I think everyone's trying to figure out how to make advertising and sponsorship content related.
Yeah.
And some do better than others.
I agree. And if you kill a podcast, the only place to take it is Hahn Funeral Home, the only family-owned funeral home in Millville, home of the Green Burial.
I thought you were looking at a teleprompter for a second there. I was like, where did the...
No. He's looking into the soul of the internet right there.
So there we go.
I mean, that was a brilliant segue. Am I wrong? That's
Exactly.
That
That's
was
what I mean.
brilliant.
Yeah,
It's impressive.
Wow.
So what's my cut of whatever you just got paid for?
You get a thumbs up
Right.
and a thank you for coming in.
Right.
No problem. I appreciate it.
I'm donating my cut to public radio.
There we go.
That's a nice segue right over there. See,
That is a
There
good
you go.
segue. See, it's a group of professionals. So,
But what's interesting is you brought up the point that a lot of the podcasters will go the route of making it sound professional or follow the. I've heard so many podcasters that do the opposite just for the sake of doing the opposite.
Absolutely.
It's like, okay,
We did.
yeah, right. Well, and you're saying 11 years ago,
Yeah,
basically,
yeah.
right. So the idea of the podcast was let's take broadcasting and turn it on its ear, which to some, if done correctly, can be a great method of. But there's a comedian that I listen to and watch, Bo Burnham, and he does a bit that I won't go into because it's a little risque. But at the end of it, he goes, "Different does not mean good."
no, it doesn't. I agree.
And I've seen so many cases where that flops because somebody just doesn't know what they're doing and they think that inherently makes it funny or better. And it's like, no, that doesn't mean that the audience is going to it might be funny to you because you're doing it ironically, but if the audience doesn't catch on to that, you've lost them.
Well, I
And-
think that's a really good point because I was so opposed to having a podcast when I first had a podcast. I didn't even listen to a podcast until after I started going up on air with my own podcast. I called it a live radio show
Right.
because I had this vision of what a podcast is, and it's exactly that what you're
it's
describing.
the P word in this industry.
And it does exist, but there's also really, really, really good podcasts.
Oh, there are.
Really fantastic podcast stuff.
But it's because those
but-
people know how to grip their audiences.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it's because there's a lot of great radio professionals that have migrated to the podcast side and they've taken the smart best practices that they've learned from decades and decades of radio and applied them to a different medium.
Absolutely.
That's exactly right. And that's all it boils down to is podcasting is on demand, broadcasting is live over the air, whether it's on the web or on a live feed. So the difference is how and when you're getting the content. But in terms of gripping your audience, aside from live radio having to hit certain posts for timing for commercials or agreements, other than that, they're really, in today's day and age, I don't think there should be that much of a difference in terms of how we're delivering the content. Should all be, hey, and the nice thing about podcasting is that you can get more of a niche audience. So, broadcasting, if you're on a 100,000 watt stick, you've got to hit as many of those people in your listening area as possible. But if you have a woodworking podcast, for example, you really only care about the woodworking people that care about that how-to. So you can still deliver to them, but it's all about knowing your audience and knowing, all right, what do these people care about? What do they want to hear? How do they want to hear it?
It's the difference between broadcast and narrowcast.
Exactly.
Right. So this is just a way to create a discussion or content or something that appeals to that particular audience.
And also
But that doesn't
creates-
mean you have to lower your standards either.
Right.
Yeah, and it also creates like these great opportunities. Like you're not having a woodworking podcast on the radio, right? Because that's
Right.
too narrow for that, broad hitting this entire area, getting as much numbers as you can for those advertisers and that, that reach.
Well, and a perfect example is I was a little while back, I was doing a road trip, and I said, I've really been on like an improv comedy kick. I'd really love to basically listen to Whose Line Is It Anyway on my way to wherever I was going. So I did a search on iTunes for like improv podcast or, Whose Line podcast. And I found like 2 or 3 different ones. That's not something, unless you're listening to, I should know the show on NPR that I can't remember the name of that they do the...
Wait, don't tell me.
That one. Yeah, wait, don't tell me. That's ironic, isn't it? Holy cow. But
Wait, don't tell me.
I did it on purpose. I wanted you to give the throw.
Very good, CJ.
Yeah, okay. So,
Professionals,
but no, but like that's really the only, I wanted something of that format, and podcasting gave those people who have that skill an outlet to do it that maybe aside from NPR they wouldn't have had otherwise.
Yeah, you could do so many different things. We have a museum review podcast where we record it while we're driving in the car. So, of course, the audio quality isn't the best, but that's part of the charm. You could hear the motor in the background. You hear me yelling and slamming on the horn at people as we're driving. Or you hear me yelling at Randy, my co-host, because he is too big of a wimp to slam on the horn at people.
And that was the initial appeal of podcasting for me at the time. Whatever I was listening to, obviously This Week in Tech with Leo and whatever else, maybe some other, there might have been another wrestling podcast at the time. But it was a little dirtier. It wasn't as polished as what you hear on the radio. And it was just like, oh, this is different and feels a little more raw. And that appealed to me too, and the accessibility.
That rawness. So really what we're talking about is connecting with a listener,
Absolutely.
right? And you connect at a visceral, emotional level with your audience. And so when you're driving in the car and slamming on your brakes and yelling at your co-host, we can all relate to
Exactly.
that. We all do it every day. So when you think about, regardless of platform or format, the concept here is connecting at a very emotional level with the people that are listening to you.
I feel like the listener at that point would feel like they're in the backseat of your car, of this conversation.
Which is great.
Absolutely.
That's the point.
Now, on the other hand, and I'm not going to name any names, but I did briefly work on another podcast where they decided they were going to have this one character. And I say character very literally. The guy was changing his voice. He was making non sequitur comments that were grossly A, inappropriate, and B, had nothing to do. We'd be in the middle of a conversation, and he'd just go in and go, I gotta blah, 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 blah. And I'm sitting there going, you think that's funny because you just derailed the show and it's ironic, but again, nobody listening understands what you're doing or why you're doing it. And it ultimately led to me leaving that show because I was like, anybody listening to me thinks that I'm promoting this idea that, again, just because it's something that is unexpected and different, that means it's good. Your idea of being in the car, again, is relatable. Everybody can relate to that. Nobody can relate to having this random guy in the corner of their room just spitting out nonsense.
Oh, exactly.
And that's something we've been very. It was identified to me several years ago. It's like you need to stop with the inside jokes,
yes,
because then the new audience isn't going to access you.
Right.
And some people get on, and I was listening to one, and the first part of the show is whatever conversation they just had before they hit record, and it's something that's pretty funny to the 5 people there. Right. And it's not relatable. I was listening to one podcast about iPhone photography, and I went 20 or 30 minutes before it got to, I'm just I haven't got to any of the topic that this podcast is supposed to be about yet.
Right.
Well, that was a big problem at WCAL, my college station. So people would think that a good show was cramming the studio with 20 people all talking on top of one another.
Yep.
Yeah.
And people would walk into that studio and just jump on mic, and there would be no introduction at all. There would no one be coming in saying, you're listening to The River's Edge with Abby Goldstein, CJ Malm, Michael Sorg, and Brian Crawford.
Nice table reset, by the way.
Yeah.
So
He's a pro.
Yeah.
I'm impressed.
thank you. It was frustrating whenever you would hear that, and you would get confused as the listener. And I remember people would try to do that on my show, and I'd see them going for the mic, and I'd be like, hold up.
Yep.
This is so-and-so chiming in from this show.
He did that very professionally, too. Sticking up a finger like that,
Right.
that's a very professional radio move.
Yep.
Is it? Because I
Yes.
don't know.
It is.
Okay,
It
there
is
we go.
very professional.
And actually, if Abby, you and I were talking before the show about the fact that we both grew up in worked and grew up in New Hampshire, and there's a station up there. If I can, there's station Greg in the Morning Buzz on the rock station up there, and they're my idols in terms of how to do this appropriately. And I got to shadow them a couple of times, and it's a lot of this pointing, which the cameras can pick up, but if you're listening, you can't. We're all pointing to each other, waving to each other. If we've got a point, that's a way to get somebody's
yeah.
attention.
It's a hand.
When I was
a
at
hand goes up.
WCAL and then at WPTS, I would always use hand motions to signal what I was doing. I can't do that here as much because, obviously, with the video, that you lose a little bit of that.
Yep. Well,
Yeah, but you know what? I think that's cool from a video perspective, too, because
is. It
it's
gives you
sort of
something to look
letting
at.
people in behind the scenes. And
Yep.
that, I think, is just like you did that. I think that really resonates with
As soon as he
people.
just put his finger up to get
Yep,
say that was
he
good.
did. He put his finger up.
So I have a question. Talking about that in the video component of this, and we're seeing this everywhere. I always say, hey, I'm not going to put a 4K video on my podcast,
Right.
Facebook stream.
Wait a minute. We're on video?
We're on video.
You can see the 3 webcams in our faces.
But a lot of podcasts like here on River's Edge, we're on Facebook Live, and the Talking Head cast is happening, right? We're just seeing us on headphones in front of microphones. There's nothing exciting except for maybe us pointing as we're talking about. Sorry, audio listeners, I'm pointing everywhere.
We'll give you a prize if you can catch the one point where I give him the finger. That's what.
But
see, I do use a lot of props on my show, though. We had a groundhog that we interviewed the other day live in studio.
He was probably way more articulate than we are. I will say that.
It was interesting. And the groundhog, it was for the Millville Music Festival, for the Millville Music Minute, and the groundhog was named Millie, and it was actually a she, and she wakes up once a year to go listen to live music and view art, and then she predicts the outcome of the Millville Music Festival. So we had a groundhog here on the desk, and we actually had someone off mic who was voicing the groundhog,
that works,
which was pretty fantastic. But the trick is you have to, if you move into this video world, you have to pretend that your audience cannot see anything that you do. And that's one of the problems. We have one of our shows, which they do a fantastic job, but they'll always say, pull up the picture, pull up the picture. Well, you don't say pull up the picture, just do it for the people who are watching and describe
the picture.
What's going on.
Yeah, you need to not forget that. And I think a lot of people are, when they move into this space, because I realize like half of our audience is still listening, on audio.
I don't watch any of our videos.
And I don't want to forget about it.
I'm an audio person. I don't, I like to listen to the podcast on demand.
But if you're there live, it's another component. But so for you guys in radio, you've gone from this is a purely audio format to, you have a lot of even just, the podcast doing it like this, but even just the radio shows, putting a webcam up, and we're streaming this way as well. Mikey and Bob were doing it a lot. The first that I had heard of. And now it seems like everybody does it to a certain extent. What do you think about this? Like, well, we got a webcam in the studio. Now there's a visual. Is it something? Is it happening in your spaces? And is it? What do you think about that movement to that?
Well, here's something purely from a technical and promotional standpoint, is that especially like on Facebook, for example, like we have Facebook Live on right now. Facebook plugs the living crap out of video.
Oh yeah.
So even more so than pictures, to the point where a lot of memes now, even though they're static pictures, are getting put up as 5-second video clips because Facebook will give them more promotion. If I'm sometimes even watching video clips or watching like a Let's Play video on YouTube, I'm just listening to the people talking, because I expect if something significant happens on the screen, they're going to go, oh, look at that. And then I can go back and rewind, watch the 10 seconds they're talking about, and then go back to just listening. I'll put on a YouTube video that's supposed to have video elements and just listen to it in the background. But the thing is, we live in a world with these devices now where any audio element is almost expected to have a visual. Even if it's people listening to music, they're going on YouTube and looking at a static picture of the album artwork, because we just live in the world of the videos are the places to find things. So even again, like you have just talking heads on a screen, even though we're not doing anything interesting, this is just the way that people are going to find the information.
Well, I think, I'm sorry, it's a good topic.
Yeah.
I have resisted this in all of my past iterations, and most of it is out of respect for our on-air staff. They don't really want a video camera on them for their entire 4-hour shift.
Sure.
A lot of them leave the room. They don't want to be caught picking their nose on video. Like, there's a lot of stuff. I mean, you're sitting in a control room for 4 hours. That's half your work day. And so, a lot of those hosts feel a little weird and creeped out by the fact that there would be people watching them for their entire shift.
You don't know how many times at KQV we've been in like a 2.5-minute break, and I'm just sitting there on my phone.
Right.
Like, I don't want my audience seeing that I'm sitting there having a Facebook Live chat conversation during my commercial break. I want them to get the impression that I'm doing 5 different things at once, which I was, but at the same time,
you're doing it on your phone.
Right. Well, I respect that too, because I think I hate when people have video just to have video, and it's literally just a camera in the corner of the room with a wide pan of the studio. To me, that's worthless and it's stupid.
It's like watching paint dry. This is what I tell people. It's boring. You don't want to watch that.
We've got the talking heads, and Sorg inspired me with the video. I was so adverse to video for so long until I saw what he was doing with video, and he has different camera angles, and he can switch the cameras out, so you get a close-up on someone. It's much more interesting the way he does it. It's not just, oh, here's a podcast, here's a corner in the room, here's 3 people sitting around the couch. There's something to actually look at when he does video, and then I've tried to mimic that as best as I can in my video, because to me it's much more interesting to look at. And that makes a big difference to me whether you're going to use video or not.
And I can step in as somebody who's done video production, because I used to do a YouTube show that was called Is This Flammable? And it was exactly what it sounded like. We had like a campfire in my parents' backyard, and we put up Home Depot lights, and we just throw random stuff into the campfire and
I've
see what
watched
happens.
that.
No, you haven't. Have you really?
God, God,
You didn't see, now you recognize my voice because that was the guy behind the camera freaking out.
I'm going to go subscribe to this channel right now, by the way.
I probably watched 3 or 4 of them and went, okay, that's interesting,
Yeah.
and then moved on
But
to the rest of my day.
But here's the thing:
it's cool and fun. Though.
It is, but there's so many videos where it's just a guy holding his cell phone and goes, "Okay, today we're going to light this thing on fire," and you see his hand come into frame and light it, and then come back out, and he just films it. I would set up like 4 different cameras, so you get 4 different angles, and then I in editing and post, I'd go in and for this 5 seconds, it makes most sense. Like, I'd do it like a real show.
Like you had a narrative arc to
Exactly.
it, which is why I thought it was interesting.
Yeah.
I can't believe you watched
I
that.
watched
That's
it.
funny.
Fantastic.
You're one of 5
I'm the
people. so
loser
thank you
that
for
watched it.
Speaking of, oh, go ahead.
I'm saying, is this the one where you had 4 seasons?
Yeah, that was
Oh
me.
my God, there's 4
So
seasons of
speaking
this.
of losers, I want to hear everyone's worst day.
Oh,
on
here we
air.
go.
So we'll start with you, Abby, since you mentioned loser.
What is my worst day on the air?
Right
wow.
now.
You know, oh, I can think of a lot worse days. I'm going to, CJ, you seem to have something right at the, I'm just not
All right,
thinking of it.
we'll roll with CJ,
You-
and then we'll go around the room.
What years were you at WPTS?
Oof, I was only there for 1 summer.
Oh, okay, it was
I
a summer
actually
show.
never went to Pitt.
Okay.
My roommate went to Pitt, so I ended up getting in through him.
Oh,
He
cool.
technically signed out the show, but he was just engineering the show, and
You
I
were the
I
co-
did the,
oh, I got you. Okay,
they hated
cool.
me there.
Really?
Hated me there. Yeah, because WPTS.
I'm starting to see why. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I can understand. WPTS, they try to be a little too into themselves. They try to be a little too professional, in my opinion, for college radio.
They weren't that way when I was there, but
Okay.
they've changed.
Well,
since.
the way I view college radio is it's a way to build your resume. You can iron out who you want to be
Yep.
as a radio personality. WPTS has their vision of what they want everyone to be. And if you don't fall within those guidelines, then they're always nagging at you because they want to mold you into their specific type of radio personality.
Right. And
DJ.
they've gotten better about that. I think anyway. I think you're right in that when I was there, they definitely had. I misunderstood what you were saying at first, and I think you're right. I think they had a certain way of like, we want to be this progressive radio station where we do things this way, and I think you're right. I think they're doing more of a freeform block now. Actually, you want to hear something funny? You guess what my show was called while I was on the air there for 4 years?
What's that?
The River's Edge.
Was
Oh
it
my
really?
gosh.
I'm dead serious.
Wow,
Get
that's
outta here.
crazy.
I'm dead serious. I was pissed when you took it. But,
I didn't come up with it, so.
no, I didn't. You took it from me, so thank you.
No, okay. There we go.
I'm just kidding. Well, no. It's all good. No, I had it, and then the casino took it for their players club, and I
Yeah.
got rid of it then. But no, when I was there, we were doing a news show, and this was at the University of Pittsburgh. They have Fall Fest, and at the time, what they decided to do with it was they put carnival rides in this little tiny stretch of Bigelow Boulevard. And they had this one ride that was a scrambler. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's like a tilt-a-whirl, but then the tilt-a-whirl is on a bigger arm that goes around. So you're basically going in all different directions on this fast spinning ride. Well, I decided for the 4:45 weather headlines, I was going to go out and sit in the ride and do the weather headlines from the ride live
No.
from my cell phone.
I can see this coming a mile away.
No, you can't. No, you can't.
Oh, I have a headache just thinking about
It
it.
has nothing to do with that. 'Cause that's what they thought too.
Okay.
That's what they thought too. Plot twist. I got up and they were making jokes about like, oh well, we have a plastic bag for you to sit on because you wet yourself and all this. I was like, no, you guys don't understand. I was sitting on the ride. It was a metal seat and there were bolts that were sticking out of the metal seat that were holding it together, and one of them was loose and it caught the seam of my pants and split the front of my pants wide
my
open.
gosh.
So I had to walk from there up to, with like my pants split wide open. I had to walk from the ride back up into the student union, into the radio station, and then I had to call my girlfriend for a ride home because I was supposed to take the bus home that day. And I was like, nope, that's not happening.
Wow, that's a bad day.
That was a very bad day. We were laughing about it on the air, but then of course they're like, well, we don't want to know this. I'm like, you're not going to have a choice. As soon as I stand up,
You're gonna see it.
Yeah, there's no way to avoid what's happening right now.
Wow.
So it was either bring it up or somebody was going to see me walk out of the station and go, why didn't you bring that up on the air? So
Yep.
that was probably the funniest moment, best story ever to come out of my broadcasting career, but worst day I've ever had.
Wow, I've had a few bad days. So I worked at this little radio station up in Dallas Fort Worth. It was north of the city. It was a low power station that was sort of rim shot to the whole market. So it only hit about 4 counties of a 9-county metro area. And it was a little mom and pop station. It was sort of an alt country format. This was in the 90s. I got in there and I got fired from a big commercial outlet, and I begged these guys to give me a afternoon show just so I could keep my chops up while I was looking for work.
You don't want the hole in your resume, yeah.
Yeah, you want to make sure that you're continuing to keep yourself fresh.
Oh, for sure.
And but it was as shoestring as any radio station I've ever worked at. And so I went in there, I go on and I should write a book about this. But the stories that came out of there is unbelievable. So I get in there, I get on the air, and only been around for about a month. And about half an hour into my 3-hour show, we go off the air. We popped off the air. Ugh. So I run out of the control room because you go off the air, you freak out. That's the way it works, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm freaking out. There's like 4 people in this radio station, and I go into the production room, and the midday guy is in there. I'm like, we're off the air. He's like, oh, well, you're going to have to call the Van Alstyne Power Company because it's probably them. So I'm in the control room, and I'm calling these power companies. Nope, it's not our problem. So I finally called the owner of the radio station, who had an office back here, and he's like, oh, well, by this time, we're off the air for like half an hour.
Oh my gosh!
Wow!
Is this dead air or is it just
dead
static?
air? This is well, it was like
yeah. So the transmitter's off the air.
It was definitely transmitter related.
Okay.
And
wow.
And so the owner's like, all right, I'll go up. So he drives 45 minutes up there to the transmitter site, discovers that some contract engineer had been in there because there was a bunch of radio stations on the same tower and had knocked the phone off the hook that was our connection to,
my gosh.
to the transmitter. So with about 15 minutes left of my show, we come back on the air. The owner shows up half an hour later, covered in bee stings.
Oh my
gets
gosh!
A can of wasp spray, gets in the car, and drives back to the transmitter site. So when he got up there and discovered the phone had been knocked off the hook, he also discovered a hornet's nest.
Oh my God!
Inside the transmitter building, and he went up there himself.
Wow.
This wasn't
your worst day. This was his worst day.
You know what? It just like being powerless to do anything about it is very frustrating, and I'm freaking out. I'm like,
now how everybody else is just kind of like, okay.
I know they were like, oh well, whatever. I'm like, dude, we're off the air. We were off the air for 2.5 hours. We missed all this advertising. I mean, it's I was freaking out. Everybody else is like, yeah, whatever.
You're a type A personality, aren't you?
Well, when it comes to something like that,
yeah.
Yes.
Without question. Real quick, though, too, I can't remember what I was going to say. Sorry.
I was going to say, Sorg, what's your worst day on air?
Oh, jeez. I mean, on the air, and of course I do everything live now. So, well, I did get. Okay, I'd say the worst thing that's happened to me live on the internet. I usually tell the story about the Puppet the Angry Dwarf interview, but I've told that too many times. But lately, we have this thing where I don't, it's podcasting, it's laid back, and I will not drink during the shows.
No.
Right? Because I'm live switching video on top of conducting the show, and I'm like, no, we're just not going to do that.
I've done it once. I'll never do it again.
Once a year, we do like kind of a Christmas blowout. Hey, yeah, we'll drink a little bit on the show, and just have some fun with it. It's just a fun show. We sing wrestling themed Christmas songs and things like that, right? So for the interview show, we have an interview version called Indie Mayhem Show. We talk to independent pro wrestlers, and there's a local faction named the Sexy Talented Dudes, the STDs.
Took me a second. Okay.
And so they come in. I mean, these are guys like Chess Flexor is the leader of it, and there's a revolving cast of guys that are part of the group. One guy's named Corey Futuristic, but does nothing about the future, which is weird. And they'll come in, and it's basically been a game of they get me drunk. And do weird stuff and bring me presents, sometimes inappropriate presents.
Sounds like every party I've ever been to.
I know, right? But it's live on the internet.
Oh, jeez.
Yes. So this is the 3rd year that they did it, and it was a pretty big one since it's the first time we were in the new studio there in Beachview. So I remember going to this. I was like, this is the night the cops will get called because we have this giant window on the main street with a T going by every 15 minutes.
Oh, my gosh.
And I remember what's happened before, and this is the 3rd year they did this. They got me, and I have never been blackout drunk on the internet.
Yeah.
On the internet.
Ooh, on the internet. Now, have you rewatched that episode?
I have not rewatched any of the episodes because no.
Because no.
And they're all Snapchatting and they're streaming their Facebook pages from their phones even after we went off the air. They told me I did about at least double digits in shots of tequila, at least 2 shots of bourbon, and 2 half beers because I kept thinking I finished them.
Wow.
And I don't know how it happened.
So you were mixing too, so you're already in trouble.
I was just conducting the show and drinking whatever they put in front of me, and I was just like, and apparently I found out my wife was like, I just kept feeding it to you because I figured the quicker you get drunk, the quicker this will be over.
Right.
That's
Get drunk fast, get done fast.
One of the guys apparently ended up dragging me under my studio desk out to the middle of the floor. I slept in the studio that night.
Of course you did.
Wow.
I slept in a pricker bush one night, but at least it wasn't live on the radio. So
Right. And one of the guys messaged me the next day, and he's like, hey, I can take down my video if you want. I was like, no, leave it up as a cautionary tale.
Yeah, exactly right.
So
right.
that's a thing that exists. I own up to it.
But you'll never watch it.
But I'll never watch it. I don't know, maybe a couple of years from now. I got like a message like 2 months ago from one of the fans, and I think he's an accountant or something. And he's just like watching back the last 2 years of the STD Christmas specials as I'm doing my accounting work. And I was just like, well, again, and they go back and rewatch them. People do that. Like now it's a
Christmas tradition.
That's a Christmas tradition now.
Wow.
And then like next year, I'm just like, I don't know if I want to do it because I think these guys are going to kill me. Because this keeps escalating, and they bring something more. They had me do 2 Dogfish Head 120s.
Oh my gosh!
Which I have a friend from Should I Drink that chugged it on the air, and which was already a stupid idea.
Yep.
And I did 2 of them during the course of a podcast.
Wow.
Not to turn this into the drinking marathon episode, but that's the one time that I've heard the night I slept in the pricker bush, I was running a fishing tournament, and it's supposed to be like a private fishing derby among friends. There were like 30 or 40 people total at this thing, and we were camping, and I won't go into all the details, but I'll say, long story short, I ended up passing out in a pricker bush. Well, at one point, I was in charge of running this tournament, so I had been videotaping everything to make a recap video at the end, when everything was said and done. Well, my brother stole my camcorder out of my pocket, and I said, drunkenly, I'm like, what are you doing? He goes, I'm going to go make some potato salad. I'm going to film myself making potato salad. And being drunk, I'm like, all right, whatever, do whatever you want. So he goes, takes a scoop of potato salad, puts it in the bowl just to distract me, comes back and hands me the video camera, and I'm like laying back, like almost passed out drunk on my bed.
Wow.
And he hands me the video camera pointed at my face, so I'm holding it like on my chest like this, and he goes, here, have fun. So on my hard drive to this day, there's like a 25-minute video of just me drunken rambling. And the reason I bring this up is because when you were saying, no, I'll never watch it, like I watched it once and I cringed so hard, I won't delete it, but I'll never watch it again. Because again, the one time that I decide, you know what, I'm going to get blackout drunk tonight, I'm going to watch that video and go, no, I don't like myself like that.
You know what? That's the stuff that comes back to blackmail you down the road.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You work in the business for a little while. Sort of run in circles, and you hear things, and so there's a lot of sort of old school radio guys that I know that have collected these incredibly incriminating air checks. And so there was one I remember that got played at a workshop, and it was an overnight guy in Houston that went on the air at midnight drunk, like incoherently drunk. Every break was just this rambling, like you couldn't understand a word this guy was saying. He couldn't do a weather forecast. It was that bad. And he didn't turn his mic button off at the end of every break. So even his off-air ramblings ended up getting caught on this air check. And he was taking phone calls at 3 o'clock in the morning that were unintelligible. And then at one point you hear this pause. You hear a gag. You hear a sploosh as this guy hurls into a metal trash can. Like, it is just the greatest cautionary tale of don't ever sit in front of a live microphone and embarrass yourself, because it's going to come back one day to haunt you.
But that's so interesting, because, I mean, whereas, I like to turn on Facebook to do this, right? Whereas you guys are, out there always broadcasting without a net. And that leads to situations like that, right? And whatever else, if something weird happens,
it's live.
there.
You
It's
can't
live.
go
It's
back
out
and
there.
fix it.
No,
right?
no, it isn't.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So
We had, well, and it's funny you say that because we do have the magic of the dump button for those couple of second
Of course.
emergencies where something happens.
Right.
Some stations have the dump button anyway. I haven't worked with one since being at WPTS, but I will tell you a funny story about that. Two quick funny stories about dump button issues. For those who don't know, the dump button is when there's the station's running on a delay, and if something happens, you
can dump it. Yeah.
If
get rid of
somebody
the last
drops
few
an
seconds.
F-bomb or an S-bomb, that you don't have to worry about getting fined by the FCC.
Well, that happened
Exactly.
to me once. I was
Yeah.
on air and I knew this song inside and out. It was one of my favorite songs, and I had it queued up to play. Well, here, the song that was in the library was some sort of remix, and it started off with fuck, 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 fuck. So I'm like, clicking the dump button, trying to change the song, and it was a song that I knew inside and out. It was one of my favorite songs. It just, for some reason, the song that they had in the library was
a remix.
not one that you could play
Yeah.
on radio. So,
Oh yeah, well, was that college radio at the time?
Yeah.
Yeah, see, that's why.
That's why,
The
yeah.
students get all intoxicated and put in whatever they want.
Right.
But, well, the two instances I had with the dump button, the one was, this is a quick one, but I was sitting at the control panel and just blurting out, like, we're on a WPTS radio, and if you want to call in, make your requests, call 412, and I blurted out my girlfriend's cell phone number.
Actually, that's hilarious.
I got to the last two digits and I went, I better dump this. Just got rid of it. But the other one was we were one of the overnight guys, and again, I don't know what was wrong with them. Some college student was in the booth and was playing a vinyl record that got stuck right on the phrase, what the blank am I supposed to do? So it just kept repeating that phrase on a perfect loop 13 times.
Oh my gosh.
And we had an archive constantly rolling so the directors could go back and say, no, here's the recording where this happened. 13 times it aired, and we said, dude, what happened? And he goes, well, the record got stuck and I didn't have anything to replace it with. I'm like, first of all, use the dump button. Second of all, go to dead air. Third of all, you've got an automation computer in front of you with music ready to go at any time.
Yeah.
Be prepared.
I'm like, fourth of all, pick the needle up off the record.
Right.
Fifth of all, turn the pot. Like, you've got 10 different fail
You have a
safes there.
microphone in front of you. Just move the arm and get on the air and talk. And hey, man, whoops, I screwed up. I'm going to go get another song. Hang on.
And
you can do that.
Once or twice happens, but on the 13th time of this F-bomb airing, we're like, dude, you can't work here anymore. It wasn't even a warning system. It was like, no, just get out.
Yeah.
Like, there's no
That's just
recourse.
plain stupid.
So we've got CJ Malm, Abby Goldstein, Michael Sorg, I'm Brian Crawford. My most interesting tale was
Yeah, we
the
never got to
time-
yours. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the time that I punted a computer. Have I told you this story?
I think I've heard about this.
Yes. So I'm about to go on air, and I've got everything set up. All of my notes were on the computer. I use Google Drive for everything. So that way I can just work on it at home. I can come back, pull it up. So the old studio, you would turn the lights on and off through a breaker that was on the other side of the building from where I was at. So I go online, and nothing's working. The internet's not working. I'm checking the modem. Can't figure it out. I'm running around back and forth. Well, here there's a breaker for my actual internet connection, and someone turned off the internet
While they were trying
on
to
the
shut
River's
the lights
Edge.
off. Oh my gosh.
And luckily, our system is a cloud system, so we do have in-house automation, but if something happens there, it automatically kicks to the cloud, so there's never any dead air. But I couldn't go live on this show, and I'm going nuts because punctuality is a huge deal for me. The show's every day, every Monday at 10. It's got to air every Monday at 10.
I apologize for running late today.
So
I was here on time, CJ. So.
Yeah.
That's why you work in radio and I'm collecting unemployment. Anyway.
So I go on. I finally find this that where it's at. I found out that the internet's turned off on this breaker. I flip it back on. Internet starts working. I go to start my show. I have an engineer with me at the time. I go in and out of having an engineer and not having an engineer. I get my netbook set up with the notes. It will not connect to the internet. Literally going live in seconds. I was so pissed. I picked up the netbook, drop kicked it, and went flying across the room. The lid to the netbook was somewhat unhinged. It wouldn't clip back into the keyboard, but it started working. The internet started working. And I'm so pissed that it ended up being one of my best shows, because when I'm angry, that's when I'm at my best. Because I do talk. I'm not doing fair and balanced news. I'm giving my opinion, so
Yeah.
I'm already heated and I'm upset and I'm railing against whatever
Now,
with
I'm glad I
this
showed up
broken
late.
keyboard.
And it was the best show he ever did.
It was a pretty good show.
It's usually when you're faced with adversity, that's when you can pull it out
hell
and
yeah.
just, absolutely perform, right?
You know,
For sure.
Yeah.
And kind of to that, one thing when I started my podcast, I had a day job. I was doing some, something I wasn't really kind of thrilled about, wasn't really creative, fulfilling, right? And for me, it was always, and I try not to do this for everything, but it's like this is the last show, this is the show where we can say the F word. What is kind of the standing rule, right? So like that is like my weekly release. Like it became therapeutic to a point where like every week, no matter what's going on in my life, Tuesday nights we get to sit down talk about professional wrestling, this goofy thing, on the face of it, right? And it becomes like my sounding board. And if I had a rough week, it comes out on the show.
Sure.
Right. So that was an interesting. There's so many therapeutic podcasts. Jay and Silent Bob Get Old is mostly about Jason Mewes dealing with his addiction recovery. And they're still doing it, but I know for the time it was just like, tell me a weird story about when you were on drugs. It probably involves sex. And how many days since have you been sober? And it was a project for him to work on. And I love that idea that this is, again, a great thing to relate to, or the people that like, maybe have breast cancer or something, talk about their experiences, and now these people can relate to that. Like that's been a really great connection for these things.
It's cathartic.
It is.
It really is.
Absolutely.
To be able to express a genuine, deep felt emotion that is going to connect with somebody who shares that exact feeling. So I think there's a lot of power in that. There's a lot of power in it, which is why I keep coming to work every day, because there's so much power in that human connection.
And I think that was what was interesting about me working at KQV, and before that I was at WJPA down in Washington doing news for Washington County, and especially on a local news level, even if you're not doing local news talk, if you're just presenting the news, you get that sense of like, I'm doing something and people are tuning in here because this is what's going to help them with their day. Knowing what's going on in the world, or, getting information that they need, traffic and weather together on the 8s. There were so many people that when KQV signed off, they said, I don't know where I'm going to get my weather reports. I'm not going to pull out my smartphone while I'm driving. I'm not going to, I don't have time to watch TV in the morning. Turning on the radio when I get in the car and knowing there was a traffic report every 10 minutes.
It's important to people.
Right.
It is important, and it's something that I was unhappy with seeing KQV leave, is I don't always want someone's opinion. I do an opinion show, and I enjoy that, but I don't go to a comedian to get my politics news. I go to KQV or WESA or some legitimate source for news. And news shouldn't always be commentary, and there should be a huge distinction. I always press upon the fact that I'm not a news reader on this station, and it's refreshing sometimes to just be able to listen to the news and not get someone's spin or someone's take. Because even with the network news, you'll listen to Fox and they'll give a news report, and then they'll turn to the camera and give a 30-second commentary, and that's not news.
Right.
That's really, to me, shady. And that's one thing I really respected about KQV when they signed off, is I could go in and get the facts and not someone's spin on the facts.
Well, and I will tell you that the management at KQV, I loved everybody I worked with, but the management there was very, very strict about that. They said if there was an anchor, and there were a couple of times, and I won't name names, but there were a couple of times where anchors who were doing a live interview with a politician or another news anchor that was giving us a report, they'd be on the phone live, and if they were very opinionated about something, sometimes they'd blurt out like, I don't think, they wouldn't outright say, I don't think you know what you're talking about, but they'd be like, well, isn't this the case? Or, I don't agree with you on that. And they'd start going down the path of news talk. Opinion. And as soon as they got out of the booth, the owner was standing there, or somebody from management was standing there going,
no.
You ever do that again, we're going to have a conversation.
Well, I worry about our political literacy in this country and our news literacy in this country, because there's such a proliferation of opinion and conjecture and a lack of facts in the way that news is presented, that this is the appetite that our society seems to have developed, is more and more people want less and less fact. They just want something that's going to support their own opinion.
Yeah.
And I think that's the that's the trap that we've all fallen into, is that broadcasters that are looking for a bottom line solution, which is more human beings accessing us, don't stop to think about the damage that that's doing to the, you know, political literacy in this country and news literacy in this country.
Well, and what's it doing to the reputation of journalists? Because
that's a whole nother hour, CJ.
Right.
Yeah. That's an hour.
But really quickly, though, truthfully, look at, not that I encourage doing this because you'll want to kill yourself, but look at the comments on TV news Facebook pages.
Don't read the comments, man.
Oh, God, it's depressing.
Don't read the comments.
It's depressing.
And it's not just about the political opinions that get spouted, but 90% of the comments are, how is this news? Why aren't you reporting it my way? You're right. The discourse in this country is that everybody either wants to see things the way they see them, or they think it's fake news. And this comes from all
everywhere.
And, and as far as commentators go, I respect a commentator who can evolve and change their opinion over time. I just had an experience like that myself, where I was, to be quite honest, not a big fan of Andy Warhol. I thought he was way overrated. I went back to the Warhol Museum. They presented it in a different way. They re-laid out all of the artwork, and I became a fan. And I said, you know what, I was wrong. I thought he was overrated. I don't think he is. The last time they had it laid out, there were way too many Campbell's Soup pictures, and there were too many videos of just him doing nothing. Well, they moved all of that stuff around, and they put in new stuff, and I saw a bigger variety.
See, I'm going to have to go back now.
I became a fan, yeah.
We're afraid in this country to have our thinking challenged. We're afraid to be challenged, and that scares me. I mean, it really does. You know, we should all be challenging each other, and we should be challenging each other based on fact, not based on gut.
Well,
and so that's my concern, and that's what I see happening a lot, and that's, you know, I think that's a huge problem.
And it's intimidating to people, because when you do, like, as I do challenge people, I'll say, well, tell me where you're coming from. And I've had so many people that say, why are you stirring the pot? Why are you trying to start an argument? I said, listen, if I wanted to stir the pot, you know I would stir in the pot, because I'd be insulting you left and right. And I said, I'm not stirring the pot. I just want to know where you stand. You may change my opinion and my thoughts. You may not. But at least, even if you don't change my mind, at least I can strengthen my opinion knowing that I don't agree with where you're coming from. And I don't disrespect you for that. I'd rather have the facts. And maybe that comes from doing news and having to be unbiased, is that you have to take your opinion out of it.
People don't want to disagree anymore.
No.
They find it very uncomfortable. And so when somebody challenges your thinking and your opinion, the first thing people do is get personal.
Yep.
They personally attack you because you're challenging them.
Somebody at the bar hated me the other day because I wasn't a fan of Anderson Cooper. Yeah. I just didn't care for Anderson Cooper, and all of a sudden I'm some monster. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not.
You're entitled to that. You are entitled to that opinion, and I don't think it's anybody's right to to criticize you for having an opinion.
Exactly.
You know what they say about opinions, right? They're like assholes. We all have them, and they all stink.
So. Mine just happens to.
I've never heard that last part, but I'm going to start using it now. I've heard everybody has one, but I like the second part of that.
Stink.
Fantastic.
Yeah, it's an interesting world. I always do try to challenge people as far as just thinking outside of the box and thinking of different perspectives. I'll go on an issue and pick apart both sides for different reasons, and people don't like that either. They just want to live in their bubble.
There's a tendency, and this is not critical of you, Brian, at all, but there's a tendency to say both sides. When most public affairs issues have multifacets, and there's a gazillion sides to these issues, and you have to sort of uncover all of them to form a point of view about it.
That is very true, and I guess that's kind of where I try to spin people. So you've got somebody who takes a stance on an issue, and I could agree with them on that stance, but the way that they go about it is wrong. For example, I don't agree with most of the things that Trump has pushed for, but one of the things that I really did agree with was I thought he was absolutely right that other countries need to pay their fair share towards NATO and other projects like that, but giving a letter to Angela Merkel, an actual invoice for money owed, it's a horrible way to go about it. So you can agree with somebody's point of view, but still not like the way that they go about handling their business. And we live in a world where you're either 100% with someone or 100% against them.
Right. Yeah. It's completely unhealthy.
Yeah,
it's really unhealthy.
Like, I think you can say that you agree that somebody should be paying their fair share, but agree that insulting them in public isn't the best way to get them to pay their fair share.
And what's interesting on that point, too, is that on a grander scale, there's this mindset that if you're a liberal, you have to agree with all liberal ideas. If you're a Democrat, you have to agree with, or conservative, you have to There's one of my best friends has a different viewpoint on abortion than I do, and we've had a discourse and we've agreed to disagree, and I can see where she's coming from, and so on and so forth. But we have the exact same viewpoint on immigration. We have the exact same viewpoints on basically, who we're going to vote for. It's just that one issue. So, if she just wanted to say, well, you're just a friggin' liberal, or you're just a friggin' conservative, however I stand it, I'm not going to say, that's going to shut that conversation down. And
it's going to discount everything else that's there. I mean,
exactly.
Humans are complex, and we're complex, right? So, we're not all black and white. We're not cardboard cutouts. We're not one-dimensional.
Right.
So, you could be fiscally conservative, but socially liberal. I mean, there's, we all, these pieces of us all live together in the same brain.
And we can change, like you were saying, you can change with over the course of time.
And just listening to someone can make a huge difference. I look at the gun debate, for example, with gun restrictions and gun control. If you're so in favor of gun control that you're unwilling to listen to the other person's point of view, they're immediately going to build up a wall. And same on the other side. If you're
and Mexico's going to pay for it. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're anti-gun and you're talking to somebody who's pro-gun control, and you won't even let them speak, you're automatically not going to have respect for one another, and you're not even going to be able to have a dialogue. And at that point, you'll never get anywhere.
Right. Respect, dialogue, we don't have that.
No. Exactly. That's something that's died.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Wow, we really went off in an interesting tangent.
I know.
I'm glad I just talked about John Cena and I personally.
Did you see him officiate the wedding on the Today Show the other day?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, was it the Today Show? No, it was who's Kathy Lee? What show is she on? It's Today, right?
It's Today, yeah.
He officiated a wedding with 2 viewers of the Today Show on, I think it was on Friday.
Because of course he's Superman. That's why.
So I'd like to wrap up with looking towards the future. So we've talked about our radio past, and we've talked about our views on radio, what we love about it, what it means to us. So what do you want to achieve in your life in the radio world, whether it be online or traditional radio? What are you hoping to change, or what impact are you hoping to make in the future? We'll start with you, Abby.
Wow. Well, as a non-commercial broadcaster, and I'm really committed to that side of the business, what's in my DNA is a desire to make the community that my station serves a little bit better than when I left it. When I retire, I'd like to be able to look back and say, all right, well, my station moved the needle in some way, shape, or form. We helped bring local artists out into the public. We helped to change the regulatory environment for music. We try to lead the way in some way to make this place better, to make the community a better place. So I know that sounds really sort of Pollyanna and, a little pie in the sky, but that's really what I think our job is.
I think
that's
makes
our
sense.
role in our society, is to try to create some kind of, something better than what you started with.
Yeah, we have a similar kind of goal here with the River's Edge. Our goal is to be local everywhere. We're very hyper-local, very committed to our community. We really kind of pioneered the Millville Music Festival. We got the ball rolling with that. It became a community venture, and we're not even the #1 sponsor because we understood that we needed to give that up to somebody else in order to get the revenue to put the festival on.
You facilitate, right?
Exactly.
So,
but we've always wanted to try to highlight local artists and local musicians, and we want to try to expand that into other cities and be a voice for local artists via not just playing their music, but also going to their CD release parties and streaming them, or giving them free advertising. We give our artists that sign up with us free advertising on our network for CD release parties and things like that. So we really want to be a community advocate. So I think really similar goals in that regard, and I think it's really cool that we have a couple different stations that are working in that way. And I know you guys do so much with on the local level. We do as well, but you don't always see that, especially with stations that are connected to larger entities. I feel like a lot of times they are less connected. I know there's legislation that's out there. I don't know if it was passed or not, to allow these stations to have remote studios.
Yeah, that's been passed.
It has been passed.
It's the FCC regulation that detaches you from your studio address or studio location.
So right there, you're losing that local touch, even in these large conglomerates.
Potentially. I mean, the potential is there.
Yeah.
That's not to say that you could have a broadcast facility where you're not actually operating from, but you're still doing everything you can to serve that community. So I think it's all in your mindset. It's all in your strategic approach to what you want to accomplish.
Well, like you and I, for example, Abby, knowing that we grew up in New England and in New Hampshire.
I didn't actually.
Oh, you didn't?
I grew up in New Jersey, but I lived there for some
All right, so
years.
I misspoke. I apologize.
That's okay.
But knowing that we know that community, if you and I wanted to host a show, even though we're in Pittsburgh, but wanted to host a New Hampshire-based community show, with the wonders of the internet, we can get enough information to be able to do that. So if somebody were to use this tool to their advantage and serve the community properly, that's great. But there's, like you were suggesting, there's also the possibility that you could have another network where it's one LA-based show and every station.
Everywhere.
That's kind of happening now anyway.
It is.
I mean, the
That's
FCC
true.
requirement is really just peeling the tape off the edges of what's already happening.
That's a fair point. Yep.
Sorg, what are you hoping to do? I know you're always working in the community as well.
Yeah, my kind of focus now has been, I'm trying not to have my voice on everything that we're putting out.
That's hard to do when it's a small business.
It is. It is. So
I know I struggle with that all the time.
So I'm trying to help enable people that do have important causes and important discussions, helping out our friends on the broadcast. For instance, a couple journalists, and it's kind of a progressive women's podcast, right? To have that conversation. I shouldn't be on a progressive women's podcast. Even I want.
You sure about that?
Right. Even I want to take my voice off the end where we say the network thing. I need to re-record that with my wife or something. Or we had another one that was Rap Gamers and talking about what's going on in that community and everything. So again, things that I don't know, that people aren't going to listen to me about those things, and maybe I don't have a strong opinion, but I know these people do and have things they need to say, and enabling that kind of thing to happen, is kind of my goal. I guess kind of moving behind the scenes, because I see the podcasting online radio as this kind of accessibility thing, right, and an opportunity for that and communities to kind of communicate more.
And it's a difficult thing to do, because so much of what we do in broadcasting starts or can be based in an ego and wanting to get your own opinions and your own voice out there.
Oh, yeah.
So, but once you grow a passion for, like you said, giving somebody else a voice, or just you have the platform and you have the skills. A perfect example being my brother just recently started doing music and started doing playing an acoustic guitar and performing for people, and he came here to Pittsburgh to visit, and I said, well, I've got a little mixing board and a microphone. I said, I can put you in my spare bedroom for 3 or 4 hours and we'll record an EP. It's entirely his voice. It's his name. I barely put I didn't put my name on it at all. I put my business's name as the record label because there needed to be one, but he's taking all the credit for it. Now that's so counterintuitive for somebody that works in broadcasting to be like, I'm going to let them take all the credit. But if you really stop and think about it, I don't care if you work for KQV or WISA or wherever you work, you might be, even if you're the face or voice of the station, you still represent the entity as a whole. And once you start getting into that mindset, I think it makes it easier to let someone else take the credit, because it's no longer about you and your ego and you being the star.
Right.
Another thing, too, speaking from a small business aspect and a small station, and you can attest to this in the podcast realm, you look bigger the more people that you have involved. If it's one voice that's doing everything, it looks very small time. It looks like it's not growing. If you have different voices and you have different personalities that represent your network, it makes your organization look much larger. So for me, it's still all ego, because the more people I get involved, the bigger,
the more you can take credrit for.
The more I can take credit for. I look like a big shot.
Hey, I'm the guy.
People are like, wow, damn, he's got people who are doing this for him. So
But you're not the star in
even
that case
we're
either.
doing that, and then I look at the name on the door, is like, my name's on the network, and I almost feel like I need to apologize. Oops, I hit a switch. I always feel like I need to apologize about that to my network people, but they want to be on the network, so I guess they're okay with it. But
the Sorgatron sounds really, really cool.
Yeah.
It does.
kinda does.
It does.
You're right.
And I don't mean it to be like, look at the podcast I'm doing, because really, there's ones that are on the network I have nothing to do with.
Yeah.
We just help facilitate bringing them together in a network and trying to make everybody look.
But why shouldn't it be your name? You created it from nothing.
Well,
if I had a cool name like that, I would use it.
But I think you're tapping into something that's important, which is asking yourself, what's your motivation for doing this?
Sure.
If your motivation for doing this is to feed your own ego, it's going to come through, and people aren't going to like it.
You want to know what my motivation is?
Feed your kids?
To have fun.
Have fun. Okay.
That's part of it.
That's
Both
what
of you are right.
Well, no, it is.
Feed my dog.
It's important to have fun, and it's also important to be a community advocate too. And I think you can accomplish both things through that medium.
But you know what? That's fun to me.
It
is fun.
It is fun.
You're right.
It's fun to me.
I've always been involved in my community, even before I discovered radio.
Yeah.
So.
I'm turning into a community person now. So for better or for worse.
CJ, did we get
a drunk
to your
one, but a community person nonetheless.
The one that sleeps in the studio on Christmas every year.
Yeah.
I used to sleep in the studio all the time, by the way. That's one thing I hate about this place, even though this studio is far superior than the other one in every single way. Yeah, the other one, there was a giant couch in the main room, and I would fall asleep on that couch.
Why do you think we brought that couch up?
Yeah, here I've got the hard floor, so and I still sleep on it because working overnight, sometimes you're just too tired to move.
There's room for a twin air mattress over here. You can probably.
I am going to bring in a pillow. I'm going to bring in a pillow and a little mat.
Beanbag chair.
Yeah, there you go. We'll get you a little yoga mat.
Well, when we first started doing video, there's a Mac Mini underneath this desk, and it was a Mac Mini that wasn't designed for video editing 10 years ago when I bought it. And I was doing HD quality video editing on this Mac Mini, and it would take hours and hours to get things done. And so I would go and sleep while it was rendering, and then I would come back out, finish it up, put it out there. And I remember we finally got the new computer, and nobody wanted to get a new computer. And they would yell at me. They said, "It's because you're beating on it, Brian," because I'd sit there and pound on it because it was the only way to get it to
drop kick it across the room.
No.
That's not science.
It was the only.
Brian.
It's the only thing that worked. Every time I did it, you bitch slap a computer across the top, and then
I need a T-shirt that says that.
It starts rolling. So, but it would work. And then I finally said, you know what? You need to get me a new computer, or else I'm just going to go to Best Buy and put one on layaway.
Yeah.
And whatever computer I get, that's what I'm getting.
Listen, I'm literally losing sleep over this. We need to do this.
Yeah. So it's like you can get the tech guy in to get a computer that's going to do what we need to do, or I'm just going to go and say that one because I don't know what I'm doing. So I ended up getting a new computer.
But anything off the shelf today would be better than that thing was.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Don't punt the new one, okay?
I haven't, no.
Don't punt the computer.
A note on here. Nope.
Everybody yelled at me whenever we got it. They said, "Don't hit this computer." I said, "I won't because it's going to work. As long as it works, I don't have to hit it."
No punting.
No punting.
That should be the title of your next project.
No punting.
Don't punt the computer.
I mean, it was amazing, and I punted this thing so far. It went out of the studio, and we had like this. We called it a bathroom closet. We had a toilet shelf as well. Yeah. So there was a little bathroom that was attached to our studio that was not usable. So we put the printer on the toilet, so it was a toilet shelf. But the door was open. When I drop kicked the netbook, it went flying out the door and into the toilet bathroom.
I think you missed your other calling. You should have been a kicker.
I should have been a kicker.
No kidding. Yeah. I think he's right.
So, I think the Steelers could use you right about now.
Yeah. So why don't we all just plug our things, and then and I think we can call it a day. It's been a wonderful thing. It's been a wonderful.
That's what she said.
Wonderful experience. Yeah.
Hey-o.
Sorry, I've been watching The Office on Netflix way too much.
Hey, this is online radio. We can get a little risky here. So.
Oh shit. Okay.
Oh boy. What am I plugging? My radio station, WYEP 91.3.
Maybe you've heard of it.
It's great. It's a great station. We're having a good time. We've got we're actually working on booking our summer concert series right now. So I can't tell you who anybody is we've booked, but it's going to be great.
My brother could use a gig.
Oh boy, here we go.
Isn't that the thing too?
Here we go.
Nova Music Festival. Everybody's like, hey Brian, you're in the music festival. Yeah. I specifically made sure I do nothing with the booking. I have absolutely nothing.
He is a booking committee.
I do because I.
Lucky.
Yeah, well, I don't want to be in that situation because everybody thinks, he's my friend, he can get me in. Well, I'm friends with like half the music scene in Pittsburgh. I can't get everybody in.
Right.
And it's not fair to the people who maybe I'm not friends with either. So
sure. So my next project is probably going to be over at KDKA TV. We're working on getting through all the red tape right now, so I can't really talk about it, but it's going to be behind the scenes doing some work there as a freelancer. And in the meantime, I've been spending the last year and a half working on my own business called Tape It Up Reproductions. So it's actually something that media folks would appreciate, because I'm taking old videotapes and audio tapes and converting them to a digital format. It started with CDs and DVDs, but I can make them digital files as well.
Ooh, we need to talk.
Oh, do we really?
Yeah,
Oh, good.
I got a bunch of stuff.
When we get off the air, tapingitup.com is the website, or if you just look up Tape It Up Reproductions on Facebook, you can find me there.
Okay.
So those are my two, and then working on my brother's kind of acting as a mini manager for his project behind the scenes has kind of become my thing as well. So multifaceted and barely getting any sleep myself.
Yeah, I got a food blog too.
Do you really?
Goldilocks Cooks. You need to look that one up.
That's pretty cool.
It's all over my Facebook.
That's nice.
My wife will love me for following that, so she won't have to make dinner for once. So I'm going to do that.
Okay, good.
Gee, where do I start? You can,
I don't think you've plugged yours enough.
Sorgatronmedia.com. You can check out all the great shows going on, including Awesome Cast Wrestling Mayhem Show, are the longest running that I'm involved with. Our good friends have stuff on there. Including
podcasting.
What the? I invented podcasting in Pittsburgh. Apparently, no, not true. But anyways, no, a lot of stuff going on there. A lot of fun projects. We're doing a lot of different stuff with the space and having more people in to the studio. If you're in Beachview, stop by. We're the one of the giant Sorgatron Media logo right across from the taco stand. So
let's go get some tacos.
It works very well right on the T line. And we have a lot of stuff going on there. Sidekick Media Services is where we work with people on their podcasting and video productions and websites and whatever they need. And, of course, IndieWrestling.us. And we're just bringing on, actually, we're premiering today, if the render finished overnight, a brand new promotion on the service that everybody can access now that's coming out. That's really on the rise.
Very, very cool. So Saturday I have a show 10 a.m. right here, riversedgepgh.com and riversedgepgh.com/live. I will be with Jay Cooper and Howie D. Mack, as always, on the Saturday show. And there is a chance.
Jay was on Wrestling Mayhem Show. He was a lot of fun. So
Jay's
I just
great.
want to throw a shout out for that.
So we may, I'm hoping, I'm still ironing out the details, but we may get somebody from the Junior Players Chamber of Commerce to talk about the Rocky Horror Picture Show and what they are doing next now that the Hollywood Theater has been purchased
So sad.
by another group. So we're going to talk with them hopefully this Saturday. I'm still ironing out the details on that. And then, of course, Sunday, as always, I will be live on Facebook Live and also at riversedgepgh.com/live. And that's going to be at 7 p.m. So lots of good stuff there. Now, Abby, I have to ask, as we close out, have you had Meeting of Important People on your playlist?
Oh, yeah,
you have?
absolutely.
All right. So let's end with them. So we're going to end with a song that you can hear both right here at riversedgepgh.com and on WYEP, Meeting of Important People. Thank you guys so much for coming on the show. I thought this was a lot of fun. It was a nice way to celebrate World Radio Day, and I hope you guys... Radio is not dead, as you can see. It's here, it's living, it's alive, and it's a lot of fun. So check it out. Check out the good stations, though, like all of ours.
Can you do me a favor? Can you edit out that part about me getting drunk and falling in a burger bush? I'd appreciate that.
Thank you, Brian.
Definitely.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you, guys. So, Meaning of Important People, Dead Man. We're going to wrap up with that. Maybe. There it is. All right. This has been The River's Edge, a special broadcast for World Radio Day. I'm Brian Crawford. I'll see you guys Saturday morning.
I'm a dead man. I'm dead. I'm a dead man.